may be asking yourself, okay, I got the bad news. Is there any good news? How does a person transition? So part 2 is, stage 2 self finds it difficult. This is not easy. Finds it difficult to transition from living in the flesh to walking in the Spirit. To go from my flesh to the Spirit is difficult and takes time because the self, the flesh, doesn't want to cooperate. Now, I want to go a little deeper so you understand how this actually works. In 1 Corinthians, it says, but the natural, that is the natural life governed by the sensuous nature, the natural man, the unconverted man, does not receive the things of the Spirit of God. They don't receive them. Okay, what do you mean they don't receive them? The reason is because they're foolishness to that person. Well, why are they foolish? People are plenty smart. Why is that true? Nor, it's not only because they're foolishness to that person, nor can he. Look at these words. He can't even understand them. Okay, I want to know why not. Why can't they know them? Because the truths about the Spirit are spiritually discerned. What does this mean, spiritually discerned? It means led by or assisted by the aid of the Spirit. The reason they can't understand the things of the Spirit is because the Spirit must help you understand them, and the Spirit doesn't dwell in them. They're discerned by the Spirit who's living inside of you to you. And that's why they can't understand. Sure, they can mentally understand, but they can't spiritually discern it because it's done by the Spirit to you. He is the teacher. He is the guide. In this passage, the Bible reveals 3 types of people. We just found out number 1 is the natural person before Christ. And they can't understand the things of the Spirit because the Spirit doesn't dwell within them. Okay. For they are foolish to them, nor can he know them because they are spiritually discerned. And I, brethren, he's talking to Christians, isn't he? The church at Corinth. And I, brethren, could not speak to you as to spiritual people. I couldn't do that. Whoa, that's the opposite. That is, the Spirit is leading my flesh. That's a spiritual person. The flesh is with you till you die. I couldn't talk to you as spiritual people. Oh my goodness. Well then, what are they? Are they natural people? Because most people think there's only 2 kinds of people. A spiritual Christian and a natural non-Christian. I couldn't speak to you as spiritual people, but as to carnal, and look at that word again, sarx, which means flesh. Wait a minute. Here's a natural one, here's a spiritual one, and there's a 3rd category. That's right. Fleshly. Okay, what does that mean? Fleshly, sensual, controlled by the fallen nature. I had to talk to you as carnal, as if you're under the flesh, as to babes in Christ. I fed you with milk and not solid food, for until now you were not able to receive solid food of teaching. And even now, after all these years, you're still not able to. What happened? Well, Paul came to visit them the first time, tried to teach some mature truth to them, like we're going to get into in stage 3, 4, and 5, and they couldn't get it. Years passed, and now he's writing to them again, and he says, you're still carnal. You haven't changed. For years, you've remained the same. You've remained as a child. For you are, look at these words now, still carnal. This word means flesh. You're still carnal. You mean, can you remain carnal for a day? Yep. What does that mean? Your flesh is leading your life. Can you do this for 2 days? Yep. This proves you can do it for more than a year. The question is, can you keep living that way? Well, for where there are envy, what is that? That's of the flesh, strife, and divisions among you, are you not carnal and behaving like mere men. My goodness, what is Paul saying? Paul's saying you're living like a mere man, as a mere unconverted Christian. You're not living under the Spirit. You have the same characteristics as a pre-converted person, as a person under the flesh. You're living like a mere person, and the Spirit didn't come inside of you, so you continue to live like an unconverted person. Wow. Well then, what does that passage say? Self must learn to walk in the Spirit or remain carnal for years. Years. As the Corinthians did. Well, how does this work then? Well, the natural person is unconverted and can't receive the things of the Spirit because the Spirit's not inside the person to explain it. Number 2, the spiritual person is converted, denies the flesh, and walks by the Spirit. The carnal person is converted, born again, brethren, but chooses to live by the flesh as a mere unconverted person. There are some friends of mine who don't believe you can be carnal. They must take a pair of scissors and cut this out of their Bible, because that's the church at Corinth. For you, this is plural in the Greek, for you all are still carnal. I couldn't teach any of you deeper things because you're still carnal. So, isn't it something that you have a whole church in Corinth who are born again, and they're the ones who have the most amazing spiritual gifts of all the churches listed in the New Testament, and yet they're the ones that are fully carnal. I couldn't teach you, plural, all of you, brethren, because you're acting as babes, as new Christians, because you're still under the flesh, and for years you've remained carnal. Therefore, what are we trying to say? We're trying to say it's not an easy transition to go from living under yourself to having the Spirit lead you, and you submit to it and be okay with it. And you could stay this way for years, because Corinthians did, and that proves that's possible, and it happens all the time. Now, what else should I do? Therefore, brethren, talking to Christians, we are debtors, not to the flesh, to live according to the flesh. Stop. For if you live according to the flesh, you will die. But if you by the Spirit put to death the deeds of the body, you will live. It's the power of the Spirit that we'll get into when I move over here to the table and really get into teaching you the secrets of how do you do this with the Spirit. And those who are Christ have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. Self stops trying to improve their flesh. It can't be reformed, but puts it to death by the Spirit. And number 3, self knows if they're walking by the Spirit because you don't have to question now, because you can see something. The fruit of the Spirit is obvious. That is, the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Do you see the opposite of the works of the flesh and those words that we just talked about and the fruit of the Spirit? In other words, it's not a little difference between these two, between living under my flesh and myself and living under the Spirit. I mean, who wouldn't like to have a life like this? These are the characteristics of Jesus Christ, aren't they? That's right. And when we submit to the Spirit and allow the Spirit to take control and want the Spirit to control, this is the kind of life. I guarantee you one thing, your spouse is going to love it if you live this way. Your kids are going to love it, the people you work with, and most of all, you're going to love it. You're going to love living with the Spirit in harmony. So this is obvious, therefore never question it. Number 4, what does the Bible call our whole life before Christ? It calls it our old man. And the Bible calls it our new life because the Spirit came and we're born the second time, born from above, born by the Spirit. That's called our new man. And these two aren't the same. Yet they're living, in a sense, inside of us, and we must make choices. Let's take a look at this passage in Ephesians chapter 4. But you have not so learned Christ, if indeed you have heard him and have been taught by him as the truth is in Jesus. Here it is, that you put off, and this is a middle, which means you do the verb yourself. It's not an active verb, it's not a passive verb, it's a middle verb. So I've got to put off something myself. Concerning what? My former conduct, the old man. I have to put off the old man. Which means I can. Just think about this. I can. Just like this vest. We're wearing this in here because there's no heat in this room and it's winter time. But I can, right now, unzip this and take it off. It's the same way here. That you put off, you take off the old man. You don't have to keep living this way. The old man which grows corrupt. Meaning, the old man doesn't get better. The flesh doesn't get better, and the old man doesn't get better. In fact, it gets worse. It grows corrupt, according to the deceitful lusts. And instead of that, be renewed in the spirit of your mind, and that you put on, here's the other choice. You have to take something off. You put something on. You put the new man. What's the new man? Well, it was created. What? Yeah, it was created. It's a miracle. The new man's a miracle. Because God, in the Spirit, came inside and made something new. It was created. That's from kitso, which is a verb which means to make habitable for people, to create a place. So the Spirit came in and made a place for the new man by the Spirit, according to God. That's this. The new man is by God in true righteousness and holiness. So you got this? It's the flesh, the old man, it's the spirit, and the new man. And I am to take off one, which means at any given moment, if I see behavior in my life, or an action, or a word, or an attitude like anger and bitterness and envy and jealousy, I know, whoa, take that thing off, because I can. You can at any moment choose to take off the old man and put on the new man and start loving, start being gentle, stop being kind by the power of the Spirit. You put this one down and you do this one. So let's fill in our next point. Point number 4, self chooses to do something, to put off the old man and put on the new man. Now you may be wondering, how can I form this partnership with my partner in my home, the Holy Spirit? How do I relate to him? What does he want? What is it like to live with the Spirit in harmony? Well, believe it or not, the Bible gives some direct commands. This is how you walk with the Spirit. And if you walk with the Spirit, you won't fulfill the lusts of the flesh.